We have two Marvel Legends Storm. We have the original regular white costume release based on the Jim Lee design in the 90s. And then we have the cel shaded version, which is supposed to be reminiscent of the cartoon. There's been a lot of debate and a lot of frustration by fans about the cel shaded painting of the figures, and how for some it's just not very good or desirable for whatever their reasons are. And so what I am gonna attempt to do is see if I can remove the cel shading parts of this figure. And the first thing that we're gonna wanna do is just take it apart. So we know we're not worried about the head, so we will remove the head. We do wanna take off the cape so that it's not in the way. We'll just remove the hands as well. Then the cape is held on by the shoulder pads. So let's go to remove that too. And that's held in by the X symbol. So you can see it's just a little peg. Cape off. Now we're down to just the figure with the paint. And we're gonna try a couple of different things. I'm gonna just start with rubbing alcohol first, just to see how that goes. I'm pretty sure that the rubbing alcohol won't do anything to the paint, but let's give it a shot. So I'm gonna just start with the leg, and I'm just gonna, nothing. That's doing nothing. Yeah, you can see there's no smudging, nothing happened to it, and it's definitely still wet. So it's not, I don't think rubbing alcohol is gonna get any worse. Mr. Clean eraser sheets to try to do this. So let's go ahead and try that. So we got a little bit of water, and let's see if we get anywhere with it. A little bit, you can kind of see it rubbed off a little on here, but you can see almost no removal from the figure itself. So this might work for certain things, but I think for this particular case, it's not gonna work. We're gonna use acetone. So acetone, which more normally you're gonna find as nail polish remover, but you can find it in larger quantities as just acetone, is just that. It's generally used as nail polish remover. Nail polish is generally a kind of paint, so it makes a lot of sense that you can use this to hopefully remove and not damage your figure. So now that I have it on my brush, I'm gonna just bring it on, and I think you can see how quickly that's taken off the paint. It's coming off fast, very, very fast. So you can see it looks terrible right now because of the black kind of getting everywhere, but we'll clean that up in just a second. So let me first clean off my brush because I don't want it living on the brush. Throw it in the water, and then I'm gonna just try to do it like this. So I probably should be using gloves, but I'm already in the middle of it, so I'm gonna just keep going. Okay. So you can see that's much, much more cleaned up, way, way better. And you can see I already even kind of started hitting that. So let's just hit it all right now. And so what's tricky is that as you're removing the paint, it's gonna just kind of spread. So you might have to kind of keep going over it a couple of times or do multiple passes to try to get it all out. Not bad. Removed from one leg so far. We're gonna go ahead and tackle that right now too. And the thing you want to be careful of, and I know we're not there yet, is the yellow. So because we want to leave the yellow, obviously we're just wanting to remove the black. So we're not there just yet, but I'm gonna just keep an eye on that. All right. All right, so removed from both legs. You can see I still have a little bit there, but I'll probably go over that later with some with the brush. Alternatively, you could use the heat and pop method to remove the leg and then really kind of get in there, but I won't worry about it just yet. So everything's gone from the legs. I think that looks great so far. I'm gonna tackle the arms next because I'm trying to avoid the yellow as much as possible for now, just because, you know, with nothing nearby, I'm not too worried about smudging any of the yellow. So we're gonna focus on the arms next. I'm gonna find a cleaner side of the paper towel that I have. Cotton balls will probably also work fine, but I don't have any, so I'm just gonna stick to this. All right, so there we are with a storm with far less cel shading. And now let's look at the torso and see what we can do with that. So I will stick with my method of aiming for the big obvious parts. So I'm gonna aim for this part right here. Since that's far enough away from any yellow, I can just hopefully just knock it out. Okay, still a little bit dirty, but we'll go back over and clean it up in a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna focus on the abdomen portion next. Again, we're staying away from the yellow as much as we can. We're gonna go after the yellow, after the parts close to the yellow after all of this. We're pretty close to the point where it's going to be much finer, and that using a big old paper towel or cotton ball will probably be too much. And so I'm going to try actually using the big brush first, or kind of big, not the biggest brush. That's the one I'm using right now. And I'm going to just try brushing away some of it. Okay, so while that did come off actually really well, my finger, which still had acetone on it, left something not so great on the butt side. So let's see if we can clean that off as well. But it did unfortunately eat into the yellow part because of how I was holding it. So hopefully it's not the end of the world. That's not too bad. All right, we'll just give that a second to dry. So I don't know if that comes up on camera. You can see that the yellow did come off, but I was able to get it so that it doesn't look as messed up as it did just a second ago. So let's let that dry for a little bit. So I'll be more careful. And that's probably a good reason to use gloves. All right, I'm going to avoid touching the back side, and we're going to see if we can get more of the abdomen. We want to be careful that it doesn't drip too much into the yellow, because again, we don't want to mess up the yellow. Alright, we'll do a progress shot. Here's what we got right now. So just now, where I had used acetone to remove as much of the black off the yellow as I could, it didn't look great, so I actually just used more acetone on the yellow part to kind of fudge the line a little bit. And I mean, I don't know how well that comes out, but it looks better than it did. I'm okay with there being a little bit of black left. I think that won't be nearly as noticeable when you're seeing everything else too. But if you're the type that really needs all of it gone, then just be careful. Let's continue. One thing you really have to be careful about when using acetone on figures is that while it will remove the paint, it can damage the plastic. It can melt it. So you did see that a little bit with my finger on the back side. But what also happened is that while I had the torso turned in a particular way, some of the acetone kind of got in there and underneath. And then when I started peeling it apart, you can kind of see that it got a little messed up right there. So just be careful not to let any acetone sit for too long. Luckily, this is behind and underneath the part that won't be seen anyway, so I'm not too worried about it, but a thing to consider. Here, I just want to show you, even though I wasn't trying to get this side, you can kind of see how I got all melty on that side too. And that's from the acetone sitting back there as I had it tilted the other way. So the acetone kind of went down when I was able to sit there long enough to damage that part. But again, that's going to be underneath when the figure's all together and it's behind. So still not worried, but please keep that in mind if you're going to attempt something like this. Okay, that came out pretty good. I don't know. And then finally, we're gonna have just this side. That's all we have left to get rid of. Okay, so the last bits that we got to look at are the shoulder pads. So we're going to go through a similar process. First, we'll completely remove the X insignias, and they just peg in, and we'll just go at it. So we'll simply take that, and we will just try to get it out of here. So we're basically done. One thing I want to point out though, I don't know how well that comes up on here, but the abdomen is a little bit messed up. And that's because, like I said, it did get a little bit melty, which is a problem. I think if I were to do it again, the thing that I would focus on is being quicker about it, not letting anything sit. I would probably, instead of using the paper towel on the abdomen from the beginning, even at just that part that was sitting right there, I would have gone straight for the brush the way I did it, because after going through it now, I realized that the brush and having it soaked in and everything, I was able to just kind of brush it out and be quicker about it. The other thing that you probably notice is that I started dipping it into the water, and I think that's actually a really good idea too. So as you're doing it, when you get get it to the point where you need it to be, dipping it in the water to hopefully wash away any of the acetone that's left so that it doesn't sit for too long. I think that's actually a really good idea. So that's what I would recommend as well. So let's go ahead and put this back together and we'll see what the final result. Here we go. Not too bad. I'm pretty surprised how well it came out, considering it's a thing that I've never done before, doing it for the first time on camera. And I think it's pretty great. The shoulder pads, those were interesting because those are obviously made of plastic, but a different kind of plastic than the rest of it, because the black didn't fully come out as much as what some people would probably want. And so my recommendation would be, if you still have a layer of black, you could try going over it again with more acetone, you know, quick brush again. The alternative would be to get some acrylic paint and just do a light layer of white paint over it, right? Because with this particular character, her costume is all white, right? As compared to the original release, where the plastic is more of a pearl, you know, a metallic white. Cel Shaded Storm is just a white colored plastic. So this should be much easier to just paint with a white paint. So I would recommend doing that probably with the pads and any other spot that you feel like you missed and is a little bit darker than you are wanting it to be. But I am actually really happy with how this came out. I think that actually looks really good. So if you're not a big fan of the Cel Shaded Storm, here's how you can make her not Cel Shaded. If you're interested in me trying this with another figure, like with Wolverine, Jean Grey, any of the other Cel Shaded figures, please let me know in the comments. Happy to try those out. Part of why I did Storm is because I felt like she was going to be the easier of the bunch, since it's simply just a removal as opposed to a remove and possibly have to replace or paint match. But I've got some ideas for Jean Grey in particular. So again, let me know in the comments below if you want to see that. So otherwise, you might also be interested in knowing how you can get the Cel Shaded figures for cheap. And if you do, please check out my video over here.